What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be with Genfinity, interviewing a multitude of builders across Web3. Well, we have a round table of AI builders on Solana today. We're going to talk about NEUKO. We're going to talk about GetFoundry and VeryAI. I'm going to start this off because nobody wants to hear from me and do kind of a round robin and low-hanging fruit question. And you can add an intro of yourself into this too. Tell us about the platform that you're building, kind of problem and solution, and feel free to intro yourself as well. I'm going to start left. I'm going to start on the screen as I see it. So, Austin, talk about NEUKO and G-Boy Special here, and I'll share screen as you start going.
Yeah, so I'm Austin, co-founder of NEUKO AI. We are building the platform for the next generation of entertainment, building AI native IP. So G-Boy is our first IP built from the ground up using AI with our own image trained LoRa's that our community has been able to co-create alongside us, and thinking through what the future of entertainment will look like where AI and humans are creating together. And so we launched G-Boy a few months ago, back in October. I've been building with a really strong community on Solana and through the G-Boy token. And now we're taking that up into level and continuing to build tools and thinking through entertainment agents.
That's awesome. No, and I think it's going to be super interesting to watch. I mean, by the way, I know you told us to pull this up, but the site looks absolutely, it looks awesome. It looks great. And
yeah,
there's going to be all
good. Holy
there's going to be all, yeah, there's going to be all sorts of ways that we're going to dive into here about the ways that AI is going to interact with pretty much everything that we do as human beings. But I want to move over to, now I have Lewis next because you're second down here. Let Lewis talk about Unbrowse and GetFoundry and intro yourself, please, sir, and we'll keep the show going.
Hey, I'm Lewis. So I'm building Unbrowse under the token foundry. So essentially what they're trying to do is providing a proper interface for agents to interact with the web. Because currently, if you guys have tried OpenClaw, you would see like agents basically try to pretend to be a human and click on the UI to achieve whatever it's supposed to do. So we're trying to remove the UI entirely and turn the entire internet into like a API native solution so that agents can do things like 100 times faster with lower costs. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. And I think I know whenever I try to prompt AI and I use, Claude and all this other stuff, it like tries to like give me contextual meaning. Like it's like my friend, and it's like, it is very like I will sit there and literally battle and argue with AI, and then I'll reach out to my dev and he's like, "You're an idiot, dude. You just need to like literally change X, Y, and Z, change like the parameters that you're putting in at the beginning, and stop arguing with AI. That's not what it's for." And Zach from VeryAI would love an intro of you too as we get kicked off here. Proof of reality is pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. Excited to share a little bit more about what we're building and also hear from Austin and Lewis. I'm Zach, the founder of VeryAI, where we're building, as you can see, the first ever proof of reality. The concept of proof of reality essentially encapsulates that one modality of truth is no longer enough. So we combine proprietary biometrics, which use your palm. We have one of the only solutions that is operated entirely from a phone camera rather than a hardware device. And we combine that with AI and deepfake detection. So detecting if an image, video, audio, or text is synthetically generated. We've also started applying both these technologies to OpenClaw bots. So we released a product called ClawKey 2 weeks ago, which essentially proves human ownership using your palm over an OpenClaw bot. So you can connect either 1 or 1,000 bots, linking that back to human ownership. But everything comes back down to the palm technology for that product as well.
Yeah, this is like really interesting because like it's so like this is a total sidebar, but I was at and I'll make sure I share all of you guys' Twitters. I was at out to dinner with my wife like a week ago, and this doesn't really have anything to do with authenticity. It's more so the knowledge gap when you get to like different age groups. So like there was a group of people next to us that were in probably their mid to late 50s, early 60s. And the one guy was talking and he's like, you know why all those actors went on strike last year, right? And the women at the table were like, no, why? And he's like, it's because of that AI robot Sophia from the UN. And I'm like, I don't think that's why the actors went on strike. But like, think about like people's normal browsing. I mean, a lot of people doom scroll. It doesn't really matter what age you are. People will scroll through Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And a lot of people don't realize like when stuff is authentic or, you know, or not. And I think one of the scarcest assets on the planet right now is pretty much authenticity. It's very difficult to tell what's real. So I'm excited to get into the weeds there too. But all of you guys are building so many different solutions. So when we get into kind of creativity through Gboy, or we get into kind of user experience with Unbrowse, or we get into authenticity through VeryAI, I guess I want to hear from you guys what you think the opportunity is. Obviously, you think it's huge. But where's the overlap with distributed ledger and blockchain, and like, where do you think like kind of makes sense? Because we see so many use cases. Like, I think gaming is a good example here, where like people just tried to go full crypto through the gaming lens, and it just didn't seem to pan out, and it hasn't yet, even though it seemed to make so much sense. I think authenticity, verifiability, the provenance is a huge win from an AI standpoint with blockchain. But from your guys' stance, what are you guys interested in, and how are you leveraging kind of the Solana network to build out your solutions? And whoever wants to go first with that is totally cool.
I think me and Zach may have some things in common here, because we certainly look at attribution like very high up on the stack in terms of importance, and why we decided to build in crypto. We basically saw it as like we had come from Doodles and other like entertainment IP in crypto. We believed that there was going to be this Cambrian explosion in content as like the AI models got better and better. But then the real problem to solve was, how do you like create engagement and retention? And the best way to do that is through aligned incentives and having a community that actually cares about what you're building and can co-create alongside of you. And I haven't found a better model for doing that than crypto, where you're able to identify individual users. You can use things like collectibles as cookies, and start to like really build out an on-chain social graph with your community. And so they very much go hand in hand for us in building IP.
Zach?
Super interesting. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things to say. In terms of the opportunity, we look at it as the opportunity to solve one of the most important issues that we face as a society, which is proving what's real and what's not. In terms of the crypto component, I came into the space in 2022 to focus on identity. And since then, you know, over the past 4 or 5, 7 years, we've seen a lot of, you know, really good privacy and identity technology come from crypto. But a lot of it has missed the mark. We're still battling the same issues that we were 5 years ago today in terms of bots. So crypto is uniquely positioned to solve a lot of these issues, but in a lot of senses, it hasn't yet. And that's where we look at, you know, really coming in and getting or utilizing, you know, the best aspects of AI and of blockchain to solve this, you know, identity and truth crisis that we see. You know, our goal is to bring, you know, billions of users, you know, onto the platform, verify billions of humans. And that's why Solana is our choice for that. It's really one of the only blockchains that can scale with us in a quick and efficient way. So, you know, I think my answer is a little bit converse to what, you know, you presented. I don't think crypto has been perfect in solving all these issues, but the potential is there nonetheless.
Lewis, I know from your standpoint, I mean, I love kind of the value prop on the site. It says Google organized the web for humans, but nothing has organized it for agents. I think it's gonna be really interesting because all of this stuff is going to tie into each other. Identity is going to tie into creativity. Creativity is going to come from it's going to be streamlined. People's ability to create things and agents' ability to create things through organization of meaningful, content, meaningful information, which I think, Lewis, we could probably all agree that sometimes AI doesn't give you meaningful information. You have to really kind of get it to the point of it giving you it. But what do you kind of see as far as this organization of like this agentic organization? I guess for a sidebar of context, like a lot of AI LLMs will use like what's called common crawl data, and common crawl essentially is like an archive of the internet itself, and that alone is like it's probably more now, 9 petabytes of data, which is like a ridiculous amount of data, let alone the ways that these agents are going to interact. But Lewis, like, how do you foresee a future where these agents interact in like a meaningful way to kind of contribute to all sorts of different things, you know, the way that we use the internet now, but agentic?
Okay, now that you mentioned
I rambled.
the old landing page, this is actually the outdated landing page that I haven't updated to the new one. But basically, when I mention organizing the web for agents, right, I don't just mean information. So I'm going a step further, right? Because let's say in the beginning, the web started off with like read only, right? And Web 2 became like, now you have read and write, right? Then Web 3 is obviously ownership, right? And where you own like decentralized stuff, right? So I have a vision of Web 4 where it would basically be execution, not just organization of data, but I want to make it such that I basically unwrap every single website's UI to expose their internal APIs, right? This way, not only do you get access to data directly to websites at 100 times the speed of uh, data retrieval compared to like using a browser to do it, but you can also access actions, right? Not just data retrieval. So let's say if agents want to perform an action, you could theoretically, I mean, you can practically just call my service to have it route through the website itself without having to click through UI. So the opportunity is massive, right? Because like the example I provided on the website, well, I'm essentially building Google for the modern age, right? If I index every single API in the web, I solve a few things, right? So I've solved the cost of LLM automation because browsers are slow, they cost a lot of tokens, and they are just inefficient, right? Secondly, I also solve the basically the problem of illegal scraping, because now agents are just going rampant, right? They are just scraping websites, automating stuff, and websites are just having insane amounts of traffic without getting compensated for it. So the whole plan is essentially to wrap the entire internet with X-Forward 2. So that way, websites can be used without implementing any sort of like things on their end, so that they get rewarded with like payments, which is the whole value of Solana for me, right? Micro payments to various websites without lifting a finger. So the opportunity is massive here because once I have like critical mass of the entire internet, right, um, wrapped around Unbrowse, wrapped within Unbrowse, it's going to help so many people with the data internet theory problems and like a lot of, well, cost issues, right?
Yeah.
That agents will bring onto the internet as well, while also solving the automation problems that they currently face.
So I want to ask all three of you guys, like, because I know through the G-Boy, like social media, when I think maybe Zach's protecting, human creators here, but I've got to wonder, and I've literally wondered this like over the past handful of months with how much is happening with AI. I'm like, am I going to be here doing podcasts in like 5 or 6 years, or is it just going to be like, am I going to be able to train a model and it's going to look like you're talking to me, but I'll be asking similar questions to what I would normally ask and trying to lead a conversation? Like, I don't think it's that too far fetched to think that, like, I'll put it this way. I think that the people that can leverage AI and automation, there's going to be so much wealth creation coming off the back end of people that can actually nail it and get it done right, that it will make a lot of the me's of the world that are doing this manually probably, maybe that'll be a niche sector and that will still exist in some ways, like maybe physical events and stuff, obviously, but like, I'd be stupid not to automate this in the future. Like, how far off do you guys think that we are for, me to scan my palm and be through VeryAI and be like, hey, this is me, but I'm giving permission to this agent to create this content or host this podcast for me? Like, are we a decade out?
Wait, I'll do you one better. What if everyone in the podcast was AI. It's just AI is talking to each other.
It would make scheduling these way easier. I'll tell you that much, and getting everybody together. But I'm
Everyone's just
curious
going
your stance on just like maybe Austin, if you want to go, like where you think we're heading towards with the future, because it's like it is rapid. Things are rapidly changing.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to know and predict into the future, but if you look at what has been constant throughout history, the need for human connection has always it's innate to us as humans. We're not Neanderthals that could just be on our own and build. Like, we've been able to become at the top of the food pyramid because of our ability to interact with one another. And so I don't see that going anywhere. In fact, like, I think there will likely be a pendulum towards like verified human experiences. I was listening to a pod the other day with Rahm Emanuel, who owns like the UFC and William Morris Endeavor and a bunch of other companies. And their bet on sports is exactly that. As you have more and more artificial experiences, people are going to actually seek out live entertainment that they can verify, is with humans. I also think another like analogy would be the luxury goods business. You can buy a mass marketed produced handbag, but there's a reason that people will go and buy a Hermes if they can afford it, with the hand stitching and knowing that there was a level of human care and intent that went behind it. So I absolutely think that there's a place for both. We, in our like tools that we develop, always kind of think of the human being in the loop at the orchestration level, and that we think these tools are going to get better and better, but it still is going to require a level of thoughtfulness and care and quality that comes from a human with like a very clear intent and with a vision, and that those ideas can't come out of nowhere. Like they have to come from a human ingenuity. So that's kind of how we see it shaping up.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like, I hope that that's the case. I feel like, as I mentioned like earlier, like authenticity is like one of the scarcest kind of things that kind of exists out there right now. And that's not like it's going to get more and more scarce, I feel like. So like then it becomes a question of like, driving value towards things that are real. And yeah, I tend to like, I hope and agree that ends up kind of shaking out, because I mean, God, it's bad right now in 2026, like let alone if stuff goes down like a rabbit hole of like, even like crazier, because I'm sure it will. I guess the question I have for Zach is like, when I look at a lot of the standards that exist out there, especially biometrics, like I look at all of this stuff converging. I think digital identity plays a role, in the adoption of Web3 pretty fundamentally over time. So like, if you look at like W3C and like some of like these standards bodies that are like putting out DID standards and things like that, I think, most of the world has not really tried to regulate AI yet. I feel like we just got stablecoin legislation like a year ago for crypto. And I wonder like how far behind AI standards are. But what are your thoughts as far as like what you guys are building and like the verifiability aspects? So like, obviously authenticity here is like going to tie into kind of this future economy type aspect that we're heading towards. I know that's like, I just rambled for like 2 minutes straight and asked like 3 questions in like in a 10-second span, but how does like the what you guys are building from a verifiability standpoint tie into kind of where you see future standards going with AI and adoption?
Yeah, AI regulation is definitely far behind, even like crypto regulation in many aspects. The rate of generation for AI is far outpacing the rate of detection is what we're working on, and also just legislation catching up. Every 90 days, there's a major jump in terms of what's possible with AI. Whether it's generation with image and video, or even with advancements like the tools that we use on a daily basis through ChatGPT and Claude. So it's very hard for legal to catch up to these things, but also for us to simply know what to do with it and how to detect it and how to operate safely. So it is far behind in many senses. I also echo a lot of things that Austin said. You know, AI generated content is clearly here to stay. It's going to have a massive impact on our daily lives, but people will continue to crave human connection. We've seen that time and time again, which is essentially the bet that we're taking in terms of what we're building. We see it as a massive market, which is why we're building the technology. But at the same time, it's important to be able to differentiate between the two. So, I don't think you're at risk. I think like your podcast, will continue to thrive. Same thing goes for sports. I do think we're in somewhat of a bubble right now, where people like talking about some of these tools more than actually using them, and we see that with ClawBot actually. OpenClaw. It is being used, but not nearly at the scale that is being talked about, especially online. You compare posts and impressions to actual users and owners of these ClawBots, the discrepancy is pretty big. So, I think there's a lot of excitement. A lot is being built, but it's not always clear exactly how often or how much we're going to use from these tools.
I
So
think
I think there's actually this thing that I think you might have forgotten to mention, because I was actually thinking a lot about verifiability of video, right? For context, right? Foundry, we built multiple products. We also had like this other tool for video generation, right? And I was thinking a lot about this whole verifiability problem as well. And the fact that you're on Solana and you're sort of decentralizing like verifiability is like extremely important. Reason being, right now we have, let's say, watermarks by Google, right, for video, and they're trying to establish a standard of, let's say, what is AI generated, correct? But imagine if everyone adopts that standard, right? That sort of like centralizes all the power of like what is real and what's not to one entity, which is Google. And I think what you're doing with like decentralizing, like you're decentralizing it, right? Yeah. So I
Correct.
think
Yeah.
like storing on the blockchain, right? There's irrefutable proof that something is in fact real or not, which is like massive. If yeah, I think no one's really realizing that yet. But you can't really just give a centralized authority of like what is truth and what is not. So I think that's like really crazy. Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah. I mean that's why like it's been kind of like you look at like OpenAI and it's like, is this like a zero sum game? Is there going to be zero competition from the like who wins out like kind of the AI game here? And it's like it gets pretty scary if like one entity starts controlling what's real or what's real or what's not. What also is really interesting, and I think Zach, you mentioned this, or go ahead, Lewis. Go ahead if you want to go first.
Oh,
I didn't mean to
I don't
interrupt.
really have much else to add, but I guess I can add like, so this is like it's way bigger than just truth, right? It can actually go straight to like things like, imagine, let's say, the next elections, right? Let's say some guy at Google is corrupt and they decide to mess around with the verifiability of things, right? You could end up having videos of politicians saying stuff that they never said, but it's labeled as truth, right? So it's that's extremely dangerous, and like the ability to verify something that's not centralized is, yeah,
Sure.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a way, it's I did obviously we do a ton of multi-chain podcast stuff, and I've had Lehman Baird from Hedera on before, and he was basically saying like, hey, like we're heading towards a future where things are just going to have to be digitally signed. You're going to have to be able to attest to some level of truth, and as Lewis mentions, like I think the whole thought process here is like it's got to be done in a decentralized. If one entity, if you have to trust one entity when you're digitally signing stuff, it gets to be like a really dystopian, crazy future. But I think, one thing that's interesting too is like I've been to a couple of like I've been to like the Python conferences the past couple of years. And I know, Zach, you say that there's a bubble right now for like AI, kind of agent workflows and stuff in crypto. But what's really interesting is like if you look out there traditionally at the AI, in AI world, for traditional enterprise and infrastructure, there's not a whole lot of like real deployments of blockchain and distributed ledger right now. Like from what I've like heard from people that have kind of been building like the crypto native end of this, it's like 1% of like the traditional industry has like adopted kind of the blockchain end of things. So, I mean, it's got to be an absolute huge opportunity, because I'm sure most of you guys, or I'm sure all of you guys believe this, otherwise you wouldn't be building it. Which makes me jealous, by the way, because I get like sit here and interview and like I have no technical ability whatsoever. Like I just randomly like throw together thoughts and see if shit sticks against a wall. But there's just a massive amount of opportunity, because like I'm assuming you guys believe as I do that like all of this stuff converges, and that blockchain and DLT are fundamentally going to be right alongside AI as far as like adoption is concerned. Like, have you guys had experiences dealing with traditional like entities out there that maybe need to understand where the value proposition is with blockchain and DLT yet?
Yeah, I think crypto's been massively misunderstood and probably misexplained, over the past 10 years. In many ways, crypto has failed to market itself in terms of what the true technology can accomplish it. The average person outside of the industry looks at crypto mostly as buying and selling tokens, rather than understanding what blockchains can actually accomplish. And that's without even getting into zero knowledge proof. So, and that's mostly on the industry itself for failing to explain those things. I do think we're still in the first inning. Crypto as an industry is definitely more mature than it was last cycle and the cycle before that. But to me, it still feels very early in terms of adoption. There's been a lot of use cases. You talked about gaming earlier, where people got really excited about once, and it's clear that maybe we're not going in that direction anymore. But in terms of wide scale adoption for traditional companies outside of crypto, it's still very early. And I think we'll be able to get that level of adoption. It just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah, I feel like we're moving towards it. Like I know that in crypto we love like terms like Web3 gaming. But I just feel like we're heading towards a future where like in a decade people are just going to be playing video games and crypto is going to be operating under the hood, and we're not going to be, maybe not a decade. Once we get to the point of building games for gamers and then crypto sits somewhere neatly in there that adds value, then we'll be, playing games and doing the same things as we kind of are. But what milestones have you guys had? I want to make sure we definitely get into like project specific stuff here. It's always interesting, and it's like the first panel I've been able to have with a bunch of Solana builders. So from NEUKO's standpoint and Gboy, what are some of the milestones that stick out to you so far? And yeah.
Yes, we launched our first IP Gboy back in October. We quickly became one of the biggest projects in Q4 on Solana. We were voted most viral or finalist for most viral campaign at Solana Breakpoint. Our image model that we created generated over 150,000 media generations from across the community, which was really interesting paradigm shift where traditionally brands pay to have UGC, and in this instance, the community were actually paying to create content on top of the IP. We launched a Gboy token at Solana Breakpoint and reached a 50 million market cap within a few hours. What other accomplishments have we had? Yeah, it's been pretty gangbusters. I mean, basically like 3 months since we launched the IP. We open source the character image model as a skill that agents can then go and reference and create their own image models on top of it. So using the same stack that we're using, in addition to a token launcher in Blowfish that we launched a couple weeks ago, so that as agents are looking to create across this entertainment stack, not only will they have like the image and video generation stack, but the financial layer that will be important to them as well.
So how do people, I mean, I'm just curious because I think it looks just ridiculously awesome. It reminds me of like so many different things that I like enjoy as kind of a person, like gaming wise. It reminds me of like Disco Elysium mixed with like Final Fantasy. Which one had VV 9? I think Final Fantasy 9. Yeah, it's really, really cool. But how do people like participate? Like, I'm really curious. I'm probably going to have to go and mess around a little bit with this after the fact. Like, so you obviously you need the token and stuff like that, but you can kind of like generate content that contributes into this world. Is that the kind of the ethos? Is that what you do?
Yeah, so right now it's you can think of Gboy as kind of like this MMO puzzle that's taking place where it kind of exists in this post-consumptive world where the community is able to actually impact the story through their actions, through the things that they're doing on the timeline, through the pieces of like augmented reality gaming content that they're finding throughout the web, and ultimately the decisions that they're making as a community. Because we have an AI native stack, instead of our content production pipeline being something that is like 6, 9, 12 months out having to plan, we can come into the office in the morning and ship something in the afternoon, if not even shorter. And so it really allows us to do a lot of rapid iteration and testing. We just launched yesterday what we call episode 2, where we view like seasons of content whereby like there's a main storyline that is being developed by the team. The community is interacting with that. And right now their interactions are actually being counted in a leaderboard. So they can see the actions that they take across the holdings that they have, the generations that they're doing, the conversations that are taking place, the puzzles that they're solving, to see how they stack within the community, and then seeing that story play out. So if you want to get involved, the gboyspecial.com is like a great place to start. There's like an overview of all of the different materials and places to create content, the story so far. Yeah, you can see the quick links here and get a sense of like your stats, where the members are hanging out, the community wiki, which is phenomenal. It's something that our community put together and maintains. They do a really good job of just like, what has happened so far? What's the story? Like what, like
this is from me right here.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's this thing where it's like, we know that the chasm between I've heard of NEUKO and Gboy and like I am an active participant in this ecosystem is pretty large. Like it's very much for super fans and requires like a decent on ramp to get on board. But our retention is like the best in the space. Like if you take that initial effort, there's so much to explore and discover, and a willing community that's there for the ride with you, that really makes it worthwhile. So it's been a lot of fun. The community is really enjoying it, and like I said, we just kicked off like our next season of content, so it's like a great time to like catch up and get involved.
Yeah, it's I mean, I remember back what was it, 2020, when like metaverse was like the trending thing, but like literally it was like, here's like a trailer, and then people were like, oh my god, this is the future, and then it ended up being like a wiki or an Excel spreadsheet. This to me is like way more interesting, because like this almost gets my head spinning, where I love like conversations where I think about like the ways that like gaming and stuff's going to change, because like obviously you guys have a core vision that you want to long term build out for and ship. But as you mentioned, since you have like a native AI stack, it allows you to also keep, not only keep the current community happy, but keep growing the community by shipping things almost instantaneously, while in the background you guys are building out your kind of big vision. It's really interesting. It leads me to believe that gaming and experiences in general in the future are probably going to just be like, I know, like, okay, so like when a new game comes out, like GTA 6 is coming out or whatever, people are like, oh my god, the map's so huge. That almost becomes like irrelevant, because like stuff's going to just be like almost, I don't want to say infinite, but it's going to be really interesting to see where things go with AI.
We talk about that a lot, because this is a game, right? Like it's a gamified experience, and the level of gaming that society is kind of like leaning towards is a really interesting development. Like you don't see as many like single player like console games performing particularly well right now. Like there's few and far between. There's like the Expedition 33, etc. But like consumptive patterns have completely changed in the age of AI, where like storytelling has become much more distributed. People are on their phones. They don't want to spend hours and hours at a time on something. They want to be able to jump in and out of a story very quickly. Maybe like they have enough time to like comment or give a like, but they're not gonna go like all the way down to like co-create or like fully create something. And that's where I think we kind of can exist in that middle space, where you're able to see the story playing out on socials in the place that you're already spending time. There is the opportunity to go deeper with a community that is here and like trying to uncover all of this lore. But a lot of the value of building the brand is actually that the community kind of inverts where the patterns of watching the content come from, where they're creating the content, they're creating, here are the things that I found about the story, here's the pieces of content that I created, putting that on the timeline for other people to consume. It's a very different type of like game development than we've traditionally seen.
It's really interesting. I'm definitely going to have to check it out. I want to move over to VeryAI and milestones that you guys have had. I'm interested to hear. And again, I think that all three of you guys are building such really interesting stuff that's going to be obviously unique use cases, but I feel like all this stuff ends up tying in together in some way, shape, or form. But I think when we get into like authenticity, I mean, obviously I create content even outside of the Genfinity stuff. I'll do personal content. You can't imagine how many times, actually this happened like a couple months ago. I used to do like really crazy deep dives, and like find content. And then like now, like this is like 2020. And now in like 2026, I'll see it like repurposed under like some hype machine that's like, this means this is going to happen within this layer one network. And I'm like, that's a really weird context. And like, it's literally a screenshot that I took and posted onto Twitter with the crappy arrows that I drew to like the research find. So like proof of like reality, proof of like personhood and authenticity is really important to me. But I'm rambling again, Zach. Milestones that you guys have had.
Yeah, there's some that I can share and some that you'll see over the next week or so. So I won't give any spoilers. But officially left my previous company, Galaxy, last March. So just as I'm sure Austin and Lewis can relate, just getting the company up and running, over the past year is the first big milestone. But we shipped our iOS and our Android apps, so both are available to try out. For the palm scan, you can go to both those links that you're hovering over now as a user and try both them out. So both those were shipped. Also, over the past 2 weeks, we released ClawKey.ai. That's a separate website that you can check out, actually, where you can bind your Palm authentication to your OpenClaw bot. So that's been used by many users. That was shipped over just 2 weeks ago, and it was used for the Solana and the Coliseum hackathon to receive an extra $5 credit if you participate. You needed to bind your Palm to your ClawKey verification. Other than that, we'll be working on the AI and deepfake detection over the coming months, as well as a couple other tools around AI and human ownership related to the ClawKey product. But there'll be a couple exciting announcements that you see coming from us over the next week or so as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and congratulations, by the way. I definitely going the full bore blockchain DLT startup route is like an accomplishment in and of itself. So yeah, kudos, and looking forward to seeing all the other announcements coming out. Lewis, from GetFoundry standpoint, what milestones have you had so far? And yeah, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Okay, so for us, right, we only very recently relaunched Unbrowse. So for us, that itself was a massive milestone already, because we've been trying to push Unbrowse for. I mean, personally, even outside of Foundry, like Unbrowse has been a project for me for like 3 years, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've been building like the index for the agentic web for like a very long time, but obviously I was too early, and obviously no one cared 3 years ago, right? Agents weren't ready. So the relaunch itself and its reception, right, by the community, from like the tech community even, right, like even outside of crypto space, has been a milestone for us, because we had like articles that I published where it just went straight up viral, right? We had like big hitters who just noticed like, hey, this is actually a proper solution to agentic connection to the internet, right? Because no one wants to use a GUI anymore. So this is a subsequent article, but I had another one before this. After this, I think it had 300K views or something. You can
Yeah.
click on the articles tab, I think.
This one?
No, the one before this, articles tab.
Where at?
The articles tab. Do you see the articles tab?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I just
Right here.
yeah. So it was sort of like an unexpected success, right? Where people basically agreed with my vision that I had 3 years ago. So then in itself was really validating because I was building into whole for so long, right? I had like 8 iterations of the same product, but no one no one cared until now when OpenClaw became a thing. So yeah, so with this we had like massive traction in the usage of the MVP, the eighth iteration, which is another MVP because it's OpenClaw plugin, right? So we had like 5,000 installs in the first week, and
Wow.
yeah, people just started using it, getting all sorts of feedback, and then the next milestone that we are aiming for is actually a revamp of that entire plugin, right? Because it shouldn't be a plugin, like it should be a skill that's available to not just OpenClaw, but like Claude Code Cursor and everything. And that should be released actually today. Yeah. And the next few milestones would be the race, and yeah, a few other things would be, well, my goal really is primarily to index as much of the internet as possible to create like a self-sustaining loop of um, a crowdsourced reliability layer of agentic actions. So the subsequent milestones will be like how much of the web we have covered.
Yeah.
So I think the next milestone we're going to aim for is to create a flywheel that just covers the most important websites out there, maybe like the top 1% that is used on the internet. Yeah.
So I have a question. How much, and this is maybe I guess for all of you, but particularly Lewis, it looks like one of the things that's happening through Unbrowse is like you're removing redundancy that's
Yeah.
unnecessary, and a lot of like I mean, this is just like it's literally a sign of how early like the AI and agentic AI is that every time I'm assuming, again, I'm not a technical guy, but like in a lot of situations, every time a user, and let's say there's 1 million users across the world, tries to do something, there's redundancy that happens every single time that could be eliminated if there was like a base layer of like knowledge that just gets better and better and better and better. Is that like
Exactly.
okay? So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. That's a huge opportunity, obviously, to like. So my daughter, like a week ago, was like, "Don't use AI," because she's like, it sounds something about water. She's like, it's like you're like wasting
Oh, it
water
uses
or
much
something.
water, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which like, hey, I mean, like, I'm sure it's a legit issue, but like, this is part of I'm guessing the growing pains of the technology is like making it as efficient as possible, which ties in everything. I would imagine it ties in a source of truth and authenticity, like Zach's been talking about. It ties in what you're doing through GetFoundry, and then it ultimately ties into something like Gboy and what NEUKO are doing, because then it just makes the processes probably more efficient, faster. Is that I'm rambling again, Lewis? Stop me from rambling. But is that one way of looking at
Yes.
it? Is it removes redundancy?
Yes. So not only do you like increase the speed, right, which means there's like less processing time of actually performing an action, right, which means the computers get to rest a bit more, but there's a lot of token savings. So I was actually doing a benchmark just now before the podcast, right, where I was doing a typical non-unravel session of just doing something simple, right, which is grabbing like a token's price, right, from an obscure website that doesn't have like integrations for, right? So that cost about 50,000 tokens, right? Because to click a lot of things, screenshot images and figure out how the website works, right? But when it went to Unbrowse, right, it was only 1,000 tokens, and it was like 1 second instead of like 30 seconds. So that's like way more efficient, right? And it's gonna save a lot of water if it's all just dollars
Sure.
saved. Yeah, yeah. It's
No,
gonna save the earth.
yeah, and I think that's what we're going to end up seeing as far as like the user experience. Like people are going to be using exactly how you have it phrased here. I mean, I would envision ultimately people aren't going and having to have a unique experience. They're probably just using a browser as they're using a browser right now. It's just going to happen to be, I mean, there's a reason that even if somebody's not tech savvy and you go on to Google right now and you try to search for something, there's a reason that you have a tab and you can use AI. Like eventually, maybe I'm totally wrong. I could totally be wrong here. But the way I look at like crypto adoption, AI, all of everything we talk about from a tech standpoint, I think we're probably just going to be doing the same things as human. It's just going to be, a more efficient process, or there's more value in it for us, or X, Y, and Z. We're going to have very similar user experiences, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited to see how you continue to develop this and just make the process more efficient too, Lewis. So
Yeah, thanks, man.
I guess as we kind of close out here, what are your guys' thoughts just kind of broadly? I think, Zach, you mentioned it a little bit. Like there's a lot of bloat, I guess. It's like more of like it's like I do see a ton of crypto AI stuff right now, but I also know just like with, crypto stuff, a lot of it is probably nonsense at the end of the day. And then I wonder what sticks around and contributes value. But I guess mainly just thoughts on where we're at right now in the industry and what you're excited about. I know a lot of you talked about it already, but we'll ramp down here. So forward-looking statements, and I'll go with Zach and then Austin and Lewis, and we'll close out.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we put labels on what companies are, like, crypto gaming companies or crypto AI companies, and we'll probably move away from that, and we just start to see crypto AI, fintech all merge into one in many aspects. And I think these labels that we've tried to like squeeze companies into really limit what the tech is actually capable of, and puts a lot of companies into boxes. So I typically encourage people to try to not fit into the frame of like a crypto AI company or a crypto company or just an AI company. I view it all as tech at the end of the day. Forward-looking statements specifically in terms of VeryAI and what we're building is, I encourage everyone to think about how relevant this is to your daily life. I think you probably can't go, if you're online or you're on social media, you can't go at least a day without seeing some sort of manipulated or synthetic identity or content. So yeah, as you shared earlier, apps are available on our website, very.org. You can try it out on iOS or Android, and hopefully be able to use it in more of the apps that you use on a daily basis. We're available on centralized exchanges, wallets, so you can verify yourself through the mobile app, but also authenticate through our partners as well.
So I totally, it's a really interesting and valid point. And I think it's okay to mention Brad Garlinghouse in a Solana podcast now, since there's been overlap over the past few months. So we'll do it. But he had a speech which alludes directly to what you were saying, Zach, where it's like you go back to when the internet started and they called Yahoo and Amazon internet companies. Nobody calls Yahoo and Amazon internet companies now. Amazon is a commerce company. Yahoo's a media company. Totally agree with you. I think that we're headed towards a future where, all this stuff integrates with society, and then the company is what the company is. Zach or Austin, I would love any forward-looking statements that you have, and thank you for joining as well today.
Yeah, just to build on both what you both said there, it's kind of like the natural maturation of an industry. If you think back to the internet, where we had internet companies and now every company is an internet company, and I think we'll see the same thing play out with crypto, as you need native payments on chain. Like it becomes the currency of doing business online, and then AI will be something like that as well. For us, obviously, we're creatives at heart. And as a forward-looking statement, I'm very excited about unlocking the latent creativity that exists within all of us. I think you've seen it at the vibe coding level more broadly, of all these people who wouldn't define themselves as builders have a completely different perspective on themselves and their own self-worth and meaning. And there's a meta commentary to have there, where when you give people better tools, you're unlocking something within them that's always been there. I think about that a lot for creativity, and the amount of storytellers and world builders that we've already seen with the amount of tools that we've given them thus far, and being able to double down in that so that everyone can kind of release their inner child and put something into the world that gives meaning to them.
No, totally. And I think one of the things that we always hear about in crypto and Web3 that isn't necessarily the case, is kind of this level playing field, democratization of access, things like that. I do think that it is so important, and it sounds to me like, Austin, like you're talking a lot about like really that actual thing in practice, which is like allowing kind of for this level playing field of creativity. Like think about how many times on crypto Twitter, and I see this all the time. I mean, I can't imagine being a new person coming in and being like, oh, this person has a lot of followers and gets a lot of likes and retweets. Their information must be more valuable than this other person who doesn't have as many followers and as many retweets. And I just think it's like the totally wrong way of looking at things. So it's really cool what you guys are doing with like allowing people to create on kind of a level playing field and contribute into a world and see what value kind of spins out from that. I think it's like the ethos of like crypto and Web3 kind of at its core is like allowing for that to happen. So it's pretty awesome. Lewis, we'll round out with you. Forward-looking statements, closing statements, and thank all of you guys for joining today. Appreciate it.
Like, I think going on to that point of like how basically crypto companies are still labeled crypto companies, right? I think that's actually an interesting thought, right? That if you guys notice, right, on X specifically, or maybe outside, crypto has a very negative stigma, especially in the AI space, right? And that's caused by a lot of like culture, I would say, not from the builder side, but from maybe the gambling side, where let's say someone has a really cool AI product, right? They launch it, right? Someone launches a token and forces them to claim fees, right? Which repels a lot of actual AI devs away from the ecosystem, even though it makes sense, right? Which really kind of sucks, right? Because I want to say that, hey, I'm an AI project that uses Photo because Photo is insanely cool, right? You get micropayments that actually solve a real problem. But because crypto is just negative stigma, right, for a lot of these folks, they kind of don't go hand in hand anymore, even though it just makes sense to have it in place. So I think, yeah, just my general sentiment is that I think we should probably do something about this culture. Yeah, but I guess my forward looking statements for Foundry itself is that, yeah, I think basically there's a lot of work to be done to like really just index the internet and make it more fast and efficient. If you guys want to like participate, you can always just install Unbrowse and then have it run in your OpenClaw. You can actually contribute, and eventually I'm gonna include things of like contributions and payments for your contributions to the internet. And yeah, you can follow my account on GetFoundry.
Awesome. Well, I definitely think, and I will tell you, when I went to that Python conference a couple of years ago, and they had like the free lunches at like the dev conferences, and it was like it's like a very traditional conference. So like Python, if for those not aware, it's big in AI, big in like machine to machine learning and Internet of Things, and obvious like financial data scraping. So you had like Bloomberg and Meta and some other entities there. So I'm like sitting down eating the free lunch, and the guy was like, "Hey, what do you do?" And it's like, "Oh, I work in like blockchain media and crypto media." And he's like, "Oh, that's still around." So like, but I don't look at that as a negative connotation. I look at that as like, oh my gosh, there's like a gigantic. This was like a year ago. There's a huge opportunity to integrate, which I'm sure, as most of you guys probably believe, I believe that blockchain and DLT just integrates in with all of this stuff. As I ramp down here, I want to make sure for people to know, go to genfinity.io. You can read all of, probably have 1,000+ pieces of content on here. This interview will be up here next as soon as this releases, at Genfinity on X, and at IOV_OWL if you guys feel like giving me a follow. And anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was really awesome to learn all about VeryAI. It was awesome to learn about NEUKO and Gboy and GetFoundry as well. So thank you guys so much. Hang out with me as I get this recording, and yeah, we'll go from there.